Friend, have you ever said yes when everything in you knew you should have said no? Not because, if you're honest, you were led to, but because you felt like you had to. See, most women of faith aren't waking up in the morning saying, let me deny myself, but they are saying, I can't make it about me, or I just need to forgive, or I don't want to be bitter, or maybe I'm being too sensitive. I'm going to let God deal with it. But underneath all of that is really guilt or fear of being selfish or fear of disappointing God or losing a relationship. So they forgive instantly, they stay indefinitely, not because they are trying to choose surrender, but because they don't have a choice or they think they don't. That's when self betrayal comes into the picture. Let's talk about the difference between self denial and self betrayal. Hey friends, I'm Robin and welcome back or welcome to the channel. If this is your first time here, I am so happy that you are here. Over here, I'm helping women elevate not just what you do, although what you do is really important. I'm also here to help you elevate who you are. Now, the friends who've been rocking with us for a while already know what to do, but to our new friends, girl, go ahead and put on some fuzzy socks, get you something good to drink, get a journal. And I do have one ask. If you get one takeaway, if you get an aha moment, will you do me a favor? Will you subscribe to the channel? Will you comment? And when you go down there to that share button, you know, that little share arrow, hit share, click that link and go ahead and put it in the group chat. Because you know, y'all talk about all the things in the group chat. You talk about how your girlfriend tripped out with what she posted on Facebook. You talk about the latest drama going on social media. Well, girl, let's also talk about things that help us rise up out of toxic mindsets, rise up from low level thinking, rise up from things that are keeping us bound, and things that can allow us to hold one another accountable. Let's talk about those things. And so today, girl, we are talking about the difference between self denial and self betrayal. I work with women all the time. I partner with women. I am coaching and counseling women. I am walking with women and women who are walking with me. And there's a common refrain. I know that there are so many women who are wanting to live honorable lives. They're wanting to live a life that really honors God. Most of the people who follow this channel are Christian women. You're wanting to live a life that honors God. But I have found that so many women believe that they are doing something that is honorable to the Lord, and they probably would call it self-denial. They might not even use that language, but their Christian understanding is, you know, everything can't go your way. You can't expect everything to be the way you want it, or life comes with sacrifices. But what they're really calling self-denial is really self-betrayal. And so many women confuse the two, and I'm here to help you. Now, if this is your first time here, you may not realize I have notes in front of me, girl, because if I didn't, I would chase butterflies. And so I have notes. And then every so often, when I'm talking to you all, something will come to mind and I want to make sure that I put it in the notes or the description of this email. So I have a notebook here for me to jot that down. Okay. I just want to let you know how we rock over here. But again, so many women that I work with have been taught things like, you got to die to yourself, girl. You got to turn the other cheek. You got to be humble. And all of those are really true biblical values. But what many women are not taught is the difference between operating with obedience and overfunctioning. Some of us think we're just being obedient, but we're really overfunctioning in the name of obedience, or we're overfunctioning because that's all we know, and we don't understand the importance of not denying who you are as you try to deny your flesh. Again, most of y'all are not sitting somewhere saying, ooh, let me deny my flesh. We're going to talk about that in just a moment. But what you are calling you being mature is really you surrendering your voice. And I want to help you discern the difference. Okay, so if you have ever consciously or subconsciously said to yourself, is God really shrinking me? Is God trying to challenge me? Or not shrinking me? Is God stretching me? Or is God trying to challenge me? Or am I doing this to myself? Let me tell you something. I am often cringing when I see people say, Lord, don't put me on your strongest soldier list. I've said it, okay? I have said it myself, but here's the truth. Some of what we are calling God putting us on on the strongest soldier list is really us not knowing how to set boundaries. It's really us doing it to ourselves. God has said, I ain't asked you to do all of that. Didn't ask you to do all of that. And I really want to help you discern the difference. Now, I'm going to give you scripture. Mark chapter 8 does say, if anyone would come after me, let him deny himself and take up the cross. So self denial is biblical. Self betrayal is not. And we're going to unpack the difference. I want to define for you what self denial is. And then I'm going to define for you what self betrayal is. And I'm going to give you some examples of it so that you can flow with me. Okay. So spiritual self denial really is choosing obedience over your ego. It's surrendering your pride, surrendering control. Somebody say, ouch. Surrendering your pride, surrendering control, or even your preference sometimes. It's choosing God's authority over your own authority. But I want you to notice what's not being denied. Your self worth is not self denial. You're not denying your self worth. You're not even denying all of your needs. You're not denying your emotional and physical and spiritual and financial safety. You're not denying your own voice. You're denying your ego. You're denying your need to be in control. You are denying your need to run it and allowing God to run it. That's self denial. Let me give you some practical examples. Some practical examples of self denial is I could snap back. I could snap back. I could give you the business, but I'm going to choose to control my tongue. That's self denial. I could go ahead and put you in your place real quick. I could run it all down real quick, but I'm going to keep my mouth closed. I want to control the outcome, but I'm going to trust God and just do what He's asking me to do. I want to stay comfortable, but I'm going to stretch myself because I know it's the right thing. I want everybody to like me, so I sometimes sit back and don't say nothing, but I'm going to deny my longing to be liked and tell the truth in this situation. Self denial has fruit to it. Even when it's really hard, it produces clarity, it produces conviction, it produces humility, and it produces a peace that doesn't cause you to disappear. I want you to understand that difference. It may not feel easy, but self denial, you will know that it is right. Now, let's talk about self betrayal. Self betrayal is abandoning your voice, abandoning your boundaries, abandoning your well being in the name of doing good. Again, self betrayal is abandoning your voice, abandoning your boundaries, abandoning your well being in the name of keeping everybody else comfortable. It's often to maintain a relationship, protect an image, avoid conflict, avoid disappointing people, and avoid feeling guilty. We often betray ourselves because we can't tolerate. We talked about this in another video. I'm going to post it in our description. We often betray ourselves because we can't tolerate the thought of disappointing somebody else. Self betrayal isn't humility, it's often fear dressed up in church clothes. Mhm. I told y'all over here, I help you elevate not just what you do, but who you are. And that starts with shining a light and telling yourself the truth about what you're doing and why you're showing up the way you are. I'm going to give you some practical examples of self betrayal. This is what it sounds like. You ready? I'll just let it go, but you're actually stuffing it and it's turning into bitterness. I'm just going to let it go, but you're actually just stuffing it because you don't want to face the reality. I don't want to make any waves. So you keep absorbing what's hurting you. You know what? I'll just handle it so nobody else gets exhausted, but you'll keep getting exhausted yourself. You know what? God is going to deal with them, but it's really you not wanting to confront something. So you put it under the blanket of God is going to deal with them. See, all of that has enough truth to it that it can sound holy, but it's really us shrinking back. Now, again, like I said, most women are not waking up in the morning saying, you know what? Let me deny my flesh. Most of us are not thinking about it consciously like that. What we're often saying is, or using language that sounds like this. You know what? It's not, it's, the issue is it's not just about me. I can't just make everything about me. Or I just need to learn how to love people better. Or I just got to make sure that I'm not bitter. Or I just need to forgive. Ooh, we're going to talk about forgiveness. You know what? I just forgive them. I just need to forgive. Or, like I said earlier, God will deal with it. Or maybe I'm being too sensitive. Or I just need to pray. You know what? Let me just pray about it. Or I don't want everybody to think it's about me. You've said one of those things, sis. You have said one of those things. What happens with self betrayal is we keep ourselves in situations much longer than we should because we don't want to make waves. We don't want to cause any problems, or we think we are doing something that God has asked us to do. I'm just going to stay because I just feel like this is what the Lord is. And listen, I want to be clear because there are times that the Lord will have you to stick with something because He's doing a greater work. I am just asking you to discern the difference. Discern when it is God asking it of you or when it's just your fear of what's on the other side. All right. And this is what I've noticed for so many years is that people aren't consciously choosing this behavior. You're not consciously doing it. You're doing it, like I said, out of guilt, or you don't want to look selfish, or you don't want to be unspiritual, or you don't want to lose a relationship, or you don't want to disappoint God. So you're saying yes quickly. You're forgiving instantly. You're staying indefinitely because you're very afraid that having a boundary is going to cost you too much. Listen, it's just me and you, friend. It's just me and you. It's just you and I talking. I know this is hard, but it's just you and I talking. Okay, let's keep going because I got to talk about this forgiveness part because this is one of the things that I sit with so many women about or with because it can be so spiritually convoluted and complicated because God absolutely commands us to forgive. The Bible even tells us if you want to be forgiven, you have to forgive. But forgiveness doesn't mean you skip the process. Forgiveness doesn't mean that you skip the grieving process. Forgiveness doesn't mean that you skip accountability. Forgiveness doesn't mean that you skip setting boundaries. Forgiveness doesn't mean that you skip the process of somebody rebuilding trust. Forgiveness doesn't mean reconciliation. And so often, this is a perfect example of when I talk about people betraying themselves. You have been deeply wounded, deeply hurt. And the moment you've been hurt, you jump to, but the Lord just says, I need to forgive. Yes, but forgiveness and process are not two separate things. You can move toward forgiveness in your heart while allowing yourself to feel what you feel. And so many times, so many women don't even allow themselves to sit with the pain of a situation or the pain of a loss. It doesn't even have to be a romantic relationship. It can be a friend. It can even be losing someone you love and you jump right away, even if it's not forgiveness, you jump right away to let me just get over it instead of allowing yourself the process. Really, your nervous system is shook, but you believe you're doing what the Lord is asking you to do by saying, I just forgive. In other words, I'm burying my head, pretending it's not happening because I don't want to really deal with it. This is what I mean about the difference between self betrayal and self denial. Here's another example. I'm coming down somebody's street. These are just some examples of what self betrayal will look like. You've been deeply wounded, and without allowing yourself to process, you jump automatically to, you know what? Let me just forgive. Everything is fine. Let me just suck it up. Here's another one. You stay in a situation because I'm just waiting on God. I'm just trusting God. I don't want to move ahead of God. Now, hear me. I am a woman of faith that has said those same words because I know it's what the Lord was saying to me. But I am that same woman of God who said that same thing because I just didn't want to face the decision that I had to make. I want you to sit with which one is you in this moment. Are you waiting on God because the Lord has said pause? Or are you waiting on God because you are afraid to make a decision? This is what we have to wrestle with. This is what it means to elevate not just what you do, but who you are. It's to pause and pay attention to what's motivating you. And many times we will use the waiting on God because we're avoiding a hard decision, or we're waiting on God, but we're really hoping and waiting for somebody to radically change a behavior that they are consistently showing us and telling us they have no intention of changing. Or we're thinking if I can just endure, it's going to produce another result when it really may never produce another result. And so you're sitting saying you're waiting on God, but you're really having a hard time making a decision. And the Lord is saying, listen, I've given you wisdom. I've given you discernment. I've given you clarity. Why are you telling everyone you're waiting on me? I've given you the authority to do what you know to do. Waiting on God is absolutely holy. Staying in situations because we are afraid to make a decision is not. That's the difference between self denial and self betrayal. And I can't tell you which one you are doing in the moment. I can't tell you that. But you can pray and ask the Lord for discernment. And, I can't tell you that right now because I don't know your particular situation. But you can sit with someone who has spiritual discernment, who can pose questions to you to help you sort through which one you're doing. Okay, here's another one. So we talked about forgiveness. We talked about, I'm just waiting on the Lord. Here's another one. You know, it's just not about me. I can't make it about me. And again, there's enough truth in it to keep you stuck because as people of faith, the world should not revolve around us. We shouldn't be self-centered. We absolutely, again, many times have to live or we're asked to live sacrificial lives, but loving others does not require you to abandon yourself. Listen, Jesus himself denied his ego time and time again, but what he did not deny was his identity. He knew who he was. He did not deny truth. He set boundaries. Do you know that Jesus was sent? Y'all go ahead and go away. I'm going to sit down right here and rest. Or y'all go away. I need to pray. He was set boundaries and he confronted people when necessary. He withdrew when necessary. He rested when necessary. He rebuked when necessary. He forgave when necessary. He spoke truth when necessary. So Jesus himself modeled to us the difference between self-denial and self-betrayal. Self-denial is not passivity. When you deny yourself, it's aligned with obedience. Self-betrayal is passive fear. Self-betrayal is passive fear that we often over spiritualize. So again, I want you to learn to discern the difference between what it means to deny your flesh and betray yourself. Again, loving others does not mean you abandon wisdom. It does not mean self-neglect, because what happens with self-neglect is you become resentful. And resentment is going to leak into your marriage. Resentment is going to leak into how you parent. Resentment is going to leak into ministry and into leadership. And if you're asking, why am I so exhausted? Why am I always overwhelmed? Why am I always frustrated? These are some of the questions. This conversation, the conversations we had last week when we were talking about the invisible labor conversation, these are the conversations that you need to ask and have with yourself in order to understand what's underneath the foundation, or what is the foundation of how you're showing up. All right. I want you to understand you are not getting extra credit because you are tolerating things that are harming you. Sis, when I told you at the beginning to get a journal and write down a takeaway, write down an aha, that was your aha. You are not getting extra credit because you are tolerating things that are harming you. You are not selfish because you are setting boundaries in your life. That, y'all, that is the difference, again, between self-denial and self-betrayal. And again, it's tricky because self-betrayal can look spiritual. You'll look like a nice girl. You'll look helpful. You'll look like the one who's always available. But inside, again, you are numb. You're spiritually confused. You're emotionally exhausted. You're disconnected from yourself. And sometimes you're even disconnected from God. Because here's the thing, you're praying, but you still feel empty because the Lord is saying, I have given you the wisdom to set the boundaries necessary to ensure that you are not neglecting yourself in my name. Okay. So before we go, I want to give you 4 signs to help you discern the difference between self denial and self betrayal. And then I'm going to give you 3 things you can do to begin to shift if you believe you can say, Robin, that's me, girl. I've been calling it, and you may not have been calling it denying my flesh because that might not be the language you're using, but you might have been calling it, I'm just waiting on the Lord, or you might have been calling it, you know what, I'm just trying not to make it about me. But after this conversation, you might be saying, child, I've been abandoning myself. Been betraying myself. Okay. But here are 4 things to help you discern the difference. Number 1, the fruit test. Fruit, the fruit test. Listen, self-denial is going to produce the fruit of patience, humility, peace, even self-control. Again, learning how to temper your mouth, not saying everything you think, not putting them in place the way you could, not reading them for filth. That's self-control, right? And that's the fruit of denying yourself. Self-betrayal also produces fruit, and that fruit is bitterness, resentment, exhaustion. You're shutting down. You're angry deep down. You might put a little smile on it, but you're angry. So I want you to ask yourself, is this surrender that I'm doing, is it producing fruit in me, or is it producing resentment? Here's number 2, the identity test. If you're denying yourself, it is you are secure enough to yield your preference. So in other words, I could demand my way, but I am secure enough that this time I don't have, you know what, you can have it. It's good. It's all good. It's not a big deal. I'm going to go ahead and yield my preference. It doesn't always have to be about me. I don't have to center myself all the time. I'm secure enough to step back every once in a while. But self betrayal says, I always have to surrender my choice. I always have to shrink back. I always have to quiet my voice. I never can articulate what matters to me. That's the difference. So I want you to ask yourself, do I deny my ego or am I always denying my actual needs? Friend, your need is not ego. Setting a boundary, that's not prideful. Having a voice is not you being disrespectful. You have to discern the difference between when it's self-denial and when it's self-betrayal. So it is the identity test. Here's number 3, the motive test. Self-denial is usually rooted in a spiritual conviction. Self-betrayal is usually rooted in fear. And remember what I said, they can both feel so similar, or they can seem so similar. That's why I always tell my clients, I tell my friends, and I tell myself, you have to tell yourself the truth. You have to be brutally honest with you. So I want you to begin to ask, did I prayerfully decide this, or did I decide this just to avoid conflict? That's a perfect question you can ask yourself. Was I prayerful about this, or am I doing this just to avoid conflict? One is you making an active choice. The other is you operating from panic. Okay, here's the last one. The assignment test. Again, this is a big one. Is this something that the Lord has assigned to me, or have I assumed this out of guilt? Oh, girl. Has the Lord assigned this to me, or have I assumed this out of guilt? Because guilt will volunteer you for things that God never authorized. Okay, you know I'm going to repeat it. Guilt will volunteer you for things that God Himself never authorized. And you are calling it God, and God is saying, hey, that one ain't me. That ain't me. And again, I talked about why am I on the strongest soldier list again? No, sis, he never told you to do that. He didn't ask that of you. And so you got to really discern what or he didn't do that to you. Sis, you made that decision. You answered that text at 2 a.m. Okay. All right, let me keep going. So that is the last one. It is the assignment test. Okay. So I did a whole video on this concept of now what, because I know that's what you're asking me. You're like, okay, Reverend, I hear you. I hear you. There are some places where I definitely have betrayed myself. So now what do? I did a whole video about now what. So I will have that video pop up at the end of our time together so you can go back and watch that, because what often happens is that you'll have a revelation, you'll have an aha moment, and then you'll be thinking, but now what? Now what do I do? Now that I have this understanding, what do I do differently? And a lot of times your now what is to sit with the revelation and begin to observe how you're showing up in situations so that you can slowly begin to make another decision. But again, I talked about that in the previous video, but I do want to give you three quick things you can do. Number one, you can name what you keep minimizing. You can ask yourself, what is it costing me? You can say to yourself, this is not sustainable for me to keep tolerating this. You can say, this is not producing fruit in my life. This is making me resentful. You don't have to be dramatic about it, but you can stop telling yourself a story that isn't true. You can really name what you keep minimizing. Number two, you can choose to set a boundary and hold on to truth. So, for example, you can say to somebody, okay, I'm just not going to be able to do that anymore. I know I have done it, and I know it might be a bit challenging, but I just can't do that anymore. Or the next time somebody asks you for something, you know what, give me a chance to think about it. I'll let you know. Or this no longer works for me. You can begin to set a boundary and name a truth. Listen, if this is a romantic relationship, I'm starting to really feel some frustration, and I really want to address this wisely so that you can hear me and I can hear you. That is you setting a boundary and articulating what you need. And then lastly, I need you to expect some discomfort, but I don't want you to excuse or confuse discomfort with you doing something wrong. When you begin to make these shifts, there's going to be some discomfort. That's why I don't think you should do it alone. That's why you need a therapist or a really good friend who's on the same page with you. That's why I said go down to that little arrow and hit the arrow and send it to your group chat so that you all can hold each other accountable to this, because you want to expect discomfort, but don't confuse the discomfort with you're doing something wrong. This is just part of the process, and you won't get it right. Here's the thing. You won't get it right all the time. A lot of times I find when we begin to recognize this, we go all the way to the other side. You're not doing nothing for nobody because I'm never going to betray myself again. And sometimes you might take it too far, sis, but you can give yourself the space to level out and regulate, begin to heal your nervous system so that you're showing up from a place of rootedness, from security, and from clarity. That's what I mean when I say elevate your life. That's what it means to elevate not just what you do, but who you are. Remember, self-denial produces fruit. Self-betrayal will eventually produce bitterness. All right, friend, I hope that really helped you. Listen, did you know that every single Monday I send out an email called the Elevation Letters? We talk about things just like this. And what I have been doing this year is I'm using stories, the stories of different people throughout the time I have done the work I do. And I'm just taking different scenarios and different situations. These are not one individual person. I'm just looking at the lives of so many of us and putting it in sort of a vignette to help us see ourselves. It is a powerful experience, and it's absolutely free. So if you haven't signed up for the email list, the link is going to be right below. It is robinmayonline.com/elevation letters. Every single Monday, there's a brand new email that is sent out that I believe could be life changing for you. So make sure you join our email list. And remember, over here, I'm helping women just like you elevate not only what you do, but who you are. I'll see you next week.